Today we're going to learn about measures of variation and how to make box and whisker plots. And those really go hand in hand. Once you figure out your measures of variation, it's really quick and easy to make your box and whisker. We're also going to review our measures essential tendency that you've learned many years ago. You might even know a little song to it, like Mary Had a Little Lamb, something like that. I'm not going to, sing and ruin your day. But the measures essential tendency are different than variation. Our essential tendency, our mean, which is like our average, what we calculate for grades. So what we do is we add up all the values and then we divide how many values we have. The median, the important thing here is you have to make sure the numbers are in order from least to greatest or greatest to least. It doesn't matter which way, but they have to be in order before you can find the median. So you're going to put those numbers in order and then the middle value is your median. Let's say that there's two values in the middle because there's an even number of values. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take the average of the two middle ones. So if you had 8 and 10 as your two middle numbers, you add those up, get 18, divide by 2, the median is 9. And then the mode, most frequently or most often, the MO for mode, that's the number that shows up the most. And you can have more than one mode. You might have no mode. Maybe everything shows up the same amount of times. Don't write 0 if you don't have a mode. Write no mode or none. If you write 0, I'm thinking, hey, 0 shows up a lot. So let's just practice this. Get a calculator if you want. I'll try to do the computations and stuff to help you out a little bit easier. I did write them in order from least to greatest already just to make it a little bit faster while you're taking the notes. So here's the scores on a test. I put them in order again. A lot of times when I put them in order, I like to underline them, not scribble them out a lot, just to make sure I get that. And I always count how many are originally, and then I count how many I have in order just to make sure I don't miss one. So when I look at it, I have 64, 65, 66, 68, 70, 72, 78, and 93. None of those show up more than once. So for mode, I'm going to write down none. For the median, I'm looking. There are 8 terms. So my median is going to be my middle number. If there's 8 terms, my median is going to be right here in the middle. Notice there's 4 on the left, 4 on the right. So I have 2 numbers in between. So I'm going to do is add those up in something like this. Oops, I have to write 68, not 66. For something like this, you don't have to do this workout because most of you know what comes in between 68 and 70. It's going to be 69 there. So your median is 69. And then the mean, we're going to simply add all of these up. And the magic Mrs. Holt here's calculator did it for us. It's 576. And then how many values were there again? Well, there are 8 values to start with. So 576 divided by 8 is 72. So that's our mean. That's the average. All right. For problem B, again, they're in order. Did that for you, make it easier. And which one shows up most often? Well, there's only 2 ones. I'm just going to put 2 here. How many 2s are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 2s. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 3s. And then we only have 3 4s. So I'm going to keep those numbers there. Obviously, what's the mode? Most often is 3. I don't like that 3, so I'm going to just redo it. 3. There we go. Don't write 14 down there. The mode is 3. That's the number that shows up most often. The median. So how many values are there? Let me just switch the color for a moment. We have 10 plus 14 is 24, 27 values. So we have 27 values. So if I were to split the number 27 in half, I would get 13 and a half. So the median, I'm going to have 13 values here. I'm going to have a number right in the middle here, and then I'm going to have another 13 values here because that will add up to 27. So really, I'm going to try to find the 14th number. So that's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So my median is 3. And then the mean. When you're doing this on your own, you might want to do something like this. There's 2 1s, so that's a 2. There are 8 2s, so that's 16. There are 14 3s, giving us 42. And there are 3 4s, giving us 12. So now I'm just going to add those values up, 2, 16, 42, and 12, and I'm going to divide it by how many values were there in all again? Well, let's look. We wrote that down here. We had 27 values in all. When you're doing the mean, we want to see you have the sum, that's the 72, over how many terms you are. So this here, I want to see this. So show that step. Don't just put it in a calculator and say, here's my mean. Show what you added them up to be, what you divided, because sometimes we do hit the wrong buttons on the calculator. And when we do this calculation, we get 2 2/3. So I'm going to write that as a decimal, 2.6 for that repeat bar. So again, those are the measures of central tendency, mean, median, mode. So now we're talking about measures of variation. And variation, see the word varies in it? So we're looking how this data varies, how the spread is. So we have different measures of variation. The first one is range, and sometimes it's grouped together with central tendency, but range shows the difference between the greatest and the least values, the max minus the min. So if I look at this example here, my max is 8, so I'm going to write 8, and my minimum is 1. So 8 minus 7, my range, 8 minus 1, my range is 7 here. Again, I want to see that subtraction. Quartiles, think quart. That is quadrilateral, that prefix, 4 sides. Quarter, 25 cents. Quartiles break up our data into 4 equal subsets, each of them with 1/4 of the data. Your lower quartile is basically, you're finding, ignoring all of this here, you're finding the median of the bottom half. That's your lower quartile. What is the middle of the bottom half or the lower half of my data? We still find our median. And the upper quartile is, hey, what is the middle of the upper half of our data? So you're finding the middle term, the median of the upper half. Your interquartile range, you're actually going to take your upper quartile, which we call Q3 a lot just to make it shorter, and subtract from it your lower quartile. So it's the interquartile. So we're taking the range basically of the quartiles there. So it's 7 minus 3, which is 4. Now we call the interquartile range IQR. Now the reason we have IQR is we need to figure out if there's any outliers, any values that don't fit in with the rest of our data. So to find an outlier, first thing you're going to do is you're going to take that IQR. So ours is 4 here. All right. And you're going to multiply that IQR of 4 by 1.5. It's always by 1.5. And we get 6. So what you're going to do then is you're going to take your lower quartile, which is 3, and subtract that 6 from it. And you get -3. So we're basically, let's say that this is my quartile. We're saying, hey, is there anything further? I'm subtracting it away, that 1.5 times the IQR. Then we're going to take quarter 3, and we're going to add that 1.5 IQR. So we had Q3 is 7, and we're going to add the 6, which is 13. Now that -3 and 13, they're important. We're going to say, are there any numbers smaller than -3 in our data set? So you look back at this set. Were there any numbers smaller than -3? No. Were there any numbers bigger than 13? No. So since there are no numbers that are smaller than -3 or larger than 13, this set has no outliers in it. So outliers, you can't just look at it and say, hey, that's an outlier. There's actually a formula that you need to follow. And we're going to try some together on the next page. All right, so let's try this out. I went ahead and wrote them in order for you. I'll just read them aloud. 43, 49, 54, 54, 59, 69, 70, 73, 73, 88, and 194. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out what the median is. So let's count how many we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So since there's 11 values, there must be 5, a middle one, and then another 5. So I'm going to count the 6th value in. I'm going to use green. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the median is the value of 69 there. All right, so that's my middle value. I'm going to put Q2 next to it also, Q2. So that now separates my data into a bottom half and a larger half. So to find the lower quartile, I'm going to find the median here. How many do we have here? Again, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what's the median? The median, or the lower quartile, is 54. So that would be my Q1. Right? So the lower quartile is the middle value of the bottom half of data. So 54. And the upper one, middle term here, is 73. So that's Q3. So now let's find our range. Our range again is we take the highest value, which is 194, and then subtract the smallest value of 43. Again, show that what the highest minus the lowest is. So we get 151 for our range. In the interquartile range, we're going to take our upper quartile, which is 73, and subtract our lower quartile of 54, and we get, let's see, 19 for that. So our IQR is important again. We're going to figure out if we have outliers by using that IQR. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to multiply my IQR of 19 by 1.5. So 19 times 1.5 is 28.5. So I'm going to take my Q1. I look back up, my Q1 is 54. And I'm going to subtract 28.5 from it. And then I'm going to take Q3, my upper quartile, and I'm going to add that 28.5 in it, to it. So I get 25.5 on my calculator. And here I get 101.5. Now we're going to look, were there any smaller? Any smaller than 25.5 there? No. Were there any bigger? Yeah, the one you add to, you're looking for bigger. The one you subtract, you're looking for smaller. Any bigger than 101.5? Yeah, 194. Now, you may have thought that would be your outlier, but without showing the work to prove it, you can't just say, hey, this is my outlier. You must show and prove that it's an outlier with your work. So 194 is an outlier there. So I'm going to stop this video. I'd like you to try to write number 2 in order from least to greatest and see if you can figure out what the median is, the lower quartile, the upper quartile. You can definitely figure out the range. But if you're a little shaky on finding your upper and lower quartiles, just wait and check it with the next video before you continue on. All right? So go ahead, start doing number 2 before you start video number 2.